And we continue at 1:07 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Weggs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, yesterday, President Joe Biden was in the land of enchantment, the state of New Mexico, to tout the successes of the CHIPS and Science Act and all the jobs that it's created. Now, Johnny, as I play you this clip, make sure you have your hand on your volume knob.
Well, there's over $200 billion. They're building fabs. They're just called factories. They're the size of a football field, not much wider than this. And guess what? Average salary is about $130,000. And guess what? You don't need a college degree. Make over $100,000 is about time.
Whoa.
I don't know who taught him public speaking, but whatever school he went to was the same school that Richard Dawson went to.
Richard Dawson, who's in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Running Man.
You ever watch those old episodes of The Family Feud that he hosted on the Game Show Network?
Oh, yeah.
He sounds exactly like Biden. He gets all whispery when he's walking up to the family doing the introductions. And whenever he gets to the wife or the daughter, every time, like clockwork, he starts leering at their breasts, leering at their cleavage. And then he starts to trail off and get real whispery. And then when he realizes that it's time to move on to the brother, that's when he starts screaming, and then he moves on to the next one.
You don't need a college degree. Make over $100,000 is about time.
By the way, what was that salary range, Joe?
Average salary is about $130,000. And guess what?
$130,000.
You know, I have never met Joe Biden in person. I have never met Richard Dawson in person. Richard Dawson, to me, just looking at him on TV, seems like he smells like a mixture of old man scent and gin. Biden seems like he smells like a mixture of old man scent and Old Spice.
And then we went to sleep.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is my pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the plaintiff's attorney suing the L.A. County Department of Public Health for restricting your right to free speech to comment on their social media posts and interact with the department. She's also the mother of school-age children. You can get her online at laparents.org and follow her on Twitter at Hamill_law. Julie Hamill, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's weird because you have been working like a Trojan on this lawsuit in a case that requires so much research, so much personal time. I'm sure you've lost many hours of sleep due to this trial and the countless hours of preparation that you've had to put in. And after you deposed the fake doctor, we had you on this program. After you deposed Brett, her assistant and communications aide, we had you on this program. And on Twitter, you were very prolific at posting the transcripts of these depositions and some of the shocking details that came out of these depositions, really, for the people who were paying attention to it, I think shocked a lot of people to their core, namely that the department was acting like Tammany Hall and abusing their authority and abusing their power as a government agency that is not supposed to be a political agency to go through partisan electeds and try to get people, including me, censored on social media by going to the boardrooms of some of the biggest companies in Silicon Valley, like Twitter, pre-Elon Musk, to try to make sure that their narrative was the narrative that took, and dissenting points of view were suppressed so people couldn't even hear the counter argument. What's interesting to me is that this is like a slow-moving wave. We reported it right away. You tweeted about it right away. Susan Shelley wrote about it. Jennifer Van Laar wrote about it. Others wrote about it. But instead of the world hearing about it all at once, it's kind of like all of our audiences heard about it, and now it's moving on to other places. And people are calling me out of the blue going, hey, did you know that the fake doctor tried to get you kicked off the internet? Like, yeah, where have you been? But everyone seems to be now learning about this for the first time who's not part of the audiences I just described. And I think it's great. I want this to go far and wide, and I want people to understand what their government was doing to them. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, and you've summarized it very well. Thank you. And it is a labor of love, and it's something that I absolutely could not do without people like you and Susan Shelley and everyone who's written about it, and all of the members of the Alliance who spend their own resources and time helping to do research and pull documents together. I mean, this is a group of parents who, we watched basically our government steal 2 years of our children's childhood. And it's something that is unforgivable, and it's not something that can be replaced. And so for all of us, this is not about money. This is about justice. It's about uncovering the extent to which our government censored and created this illusion of consensus that really harmed our families. And some of these people in the Alliance, they have photographic memories, and they can immediately pull up the clip or the moment where Ferrer said something. And it's incredibly helpful to a person like me who's trying to be a mother and a school board member and a lawyer handling this case on my own. But I do have, exciting news that I hopefully might be able to announce shortly about someone who will be joining to try the case with me. So I won't be completely alone when we go to court in October. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic news. And I don't know what kind of reaction you're getting from people who are hearing about this for the first time. But for me personally, when they contact me, they seem to be absolutely floored that the government was doing this. They seem genuinely surprised. Now, I was probably less surprised than they were because I know how these people operate. And at this point, I was familiar with their work. So when I found out that they were doing what they were doing, it seemed rational to me from how they've behaved before. But for a lot of people who were not following the ins and the outs of the LA County Department of Public Health, it seems like a lot of those people cannot believe what they're reading.
Well, tell them to take a look at Missouri v. Biden and all of the documents that are now available on PACER and the NCLA website, because our case against the county is essentially a miniature version of what the federal government has done on a massive scale. And it's all about creating this illusion of consensus, and it's all about the government pressuring social media companies to silence viewpoints and content that they don't agree with. It's completely wrong. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen today, but they had oral arguments in that case in the Fifth Circuit, and John Sauer absolutely killed. He's my new hero. And so I'm hoping we'll get a decision in that case shortly, which is going to have a massive impact. And I think that's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Last time we talked, it was right after you deposed Brett, who is the communications chief for the fake doctor at the LA County Department of Public Health. Since then, the department and its attorneys, and these are not attorneys, I believe, that work for Barbara Ferrer directly within the department as full-time county employees. I believe they went out to a big law firm to find their representation. But this law firm is going after you and the people you represent extremely aggressively. Can you explain what's going on?
This is really the most egregious part of this entire experience to me. The behavior exhibited by the attorney on the other side who works for a private law firm, a white shoe firm, where they're billing over $1,000 an hour to their clients. He has taken this to a personal level that I've never seen in my entire life as a litigator. I've never seen this conduct. Maybe this is what the big law firms do to each other when they've got multi-billion-dollar business disputes. They pull out all the stops and all the dirty tricks. We are a group of mothers, and they have gone through every single person I've named. I've only named 4 members of the Alliance in our documents because I knew that they would act in this hostile, aggressive, retaliatory, intimidating manner. And there's only a few people who are willing to stand up to that. But they have, with Sarah Beth Berwick, which was detailed on Twitter, They pretended that she was a security threat. They defamed her. They brought in multiple people to submit declarations to support this absolutely bogus allegation that she was a security threat while she was sitting in their lobby because they locked her out of the deposition. Then they went and served or attempted to serve a subpoena on another client at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night to wake up her children, knowing that she's a represented party, knowing that I told them to serve any process on me. I never provided the addresses to this attorney, so he's, cyber stalking all of these people. And then the things that he did to Roxanne Hogue during her deposition brought Roxanne to tears. And it was all about exposing her private address and the names of her children. And then in that deposition, he introduced an exhibit with a photo of my son. And I can't express in words how disgusting this behavior is. I attempted to hold him accountable via motion for sanction. That was denied. And I think once that motion was denied, it was open season for him. So I don't think we're going to get any accountability for that sort of behavior. I wish that our Board of Supervisors would do something about it, but they don't care. So I just have to ignore it, grit my teeth, and we're almost through October 16th, which is the date of trial, and then hopefully I don't have to think about it anymore.
What is the argument for bringing in a picture of your child or putting Roxanne's personal home address in a public forum or a document that could be read by the public?
Intimidation. That's the only thing that I can think of. There's absolutely no relevance.
And what was his explanation when he put up the picture of your child? Just, hey, recognize him?
There was no explanation. He was pulling in documents from my school board campaign. Mind you, I'm not a witness in this lawsuit. I am the lawyer for the alliance. But he has conducted himself in a way that is personally harassing and intimidating toward me as the attorney throughout this entire case. And I think it's really just his strategy to try and get me to go away, but I won't.
Who do you think is calling the shots over there? Who's a shot caller? And I say that because I listened to your deposition of the fake doctor. And when you listen to this woman speak off the cuff, you don't walk away from it saying, this woman's an evil genius. You walk away from it saying, this woman should be parking cars in Newark. When Brett was testifying and he was struggling with basic questions that he should know the answers to, you don't say to yourself, okay, this guy is someone who's been reading Machiavelli. You say to yourself, this is someone who may not know who Machiavelli is. And these attorneys who are going into this trial acting as if they're representing the mob, they're representing organized crime or some entity like that, La Cosa Nostra. I get why the white-collar firms act like that, because this is what you do when you're trying to go after someone who's trying to sue an insurance company or something. I'm sure that's what most of their litigation involves. But for something like this that involves a public health agency, you're not necessarily supposed to go pedal to the metal the whole way through. You're just trying to make sure the public gets what they're entitled to, and it's not bloodlust, win at all costs, which is how they're behaving. And it seems like they go back and forth from the Keystone Cops, where they barely have the motor skills to open a door, and then Tammany Hall. And I don't understand if it's just they have malicious impulses, but they don't have the brain power to back it up. If there's a guru who just stops by on occasion and tells them what to do. I don't understand how this department works. Do you?
I don't. I think that's another very apt description of how things are conducted. The Keystone Cops, these people are scarily dumb. They are unbelievably stupid. And when we began Roxanne's deposition, which was via Zoom a couple of weeks ago, county counsel couldn't figure out how to get on first. Then when he finally got on, he couldn't figure out how to change his name from Royale with cheese to his actual name. And so we began the deposition with this county counsel, this attorney who's making, a big six-figure salary, who can't figure out how to not be named Royale with cheese on the deposition.
Wait, Royale with cheese? Like it's an order at Burger King?
Pulp Fiction reference.
Yeah. Tough guy. They're all tough guys. They all have all sorts of interesting references. Like Brett has his reference to some rap lyrics in his Twitter profile. But these people, they're not operating with a full set. And I don't know who's calling the shots. It seems hyper-political. It's, the evidence shows that Brett is very much tied in with Patrick Morrow Boland, by the way. And Patrick Boland, I don't know if he's currently the chief of staff. I think he's moved over to the campaign now for Adam Schiff. But we have all of this evidence showing Schiff's heavy involvement in the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and their censorship regime and forcing social media companies to censor content under the threat of amending Section 230. So I don't know if it's the Democratic Party. I don't know what exactly has driven their behavior and driven these mandates and this conduct where they want to silence every voice of opposition. I don't think it's something that just Ferrer and Morrow cooked up together. It seems like a bigger force at play here.
No, look, I understand that there are some people that are pool sharks. They play possum. They do whatever to come off one way, but in reality are another thing. After watching hours upon hours upon hours of those depositions, I know that they're educated, but they come off as being functioning illiterates. They don't come across as being people who are extremely savvy politically and well-trained in the art of intimidation. I would not be a bit surprised if Adam Schiff is the one who they are leaning on for virtually all of their political advice. We certainly know that he's the one that they went through when they were trying to punish me with the higher-ups at Twitter and others. But I'll tell you what's dangerous for them. What's dangerous for them is that all of this is going on at the same time Adam Schiff is looking to move from the House of Representatives to the U.S. Senate, which means he has two well-funded, credible Democratic opponents in Katie Porter and Barbara Lee. And if Arnold Schwarzenegger gets in the race, there's going to be a well-funded, credible Republican candidate too. And that means it is going to be a complete, horror show for Adam Schiff, because they're all going to be going after him because he's the one that's perceived to be the leader. He's going to be taking incoming fire from all sides, from Democrats, from Republicans, from news media outlets who are reporting on the case. And this is something that's going to be a problem for him. And this is something where if one of his political opponents latches onto it and really starts scratching at the surface and pushing the story, it's going to be a problem for Schiff, and it's going to be a problem for the LA County Department of Public Health.
Well, let me just put it out there now that if anyone interested in doing that wants to talk, I'm very easy to find. So I'm happy to chat. And I do hope it's a problem. I mean, his record of censorship and intimidation of social media companies is very public. It's heavily discussed in the Missouri v. Biden record. And I think every American needs to go and read the briefs in the Missouri v. Biden case to understand what our government has done, because they really did create an illusion of consensus. That is why we had so many zealous people who were religious about masking and vax and all these things, where there were literal genuine questions of, are these effective? Is this effective? Is this the best thing to do for this? Is COVID as deadly as people are saying it is? I mean, there were valid questions, and the answers to those valid questions were completely censored on a massive scale. And it's not just COVID that our government is censoring.
No, and I'll tell you what else is part of the problem here. Of all of the news outlets that we discussed that are covering this story, the 800-pound gorilla that's totally ignored it is the Los Angeles Times. They have ignored it. They will continue to ignore it. This is not a story that fits their narrative, so it's something they just won't talk about at all. In fact, they just ran a piece recently authored by Ron Lynn, surprise, surprise, the fake doctor's BFF, that talks about why we should all be wearing masks again, and that COVID is on the rise in Los Angeles County, and we need to go back to mitigation efforts. And if we don't do that, then, we're not following the science. And you say to yourself, okay, Part of the reason that the city is broken is that the newspaper of record doesn't cover the news. They only cover what the ruling elite wants them to cover. And Barbara Ferrer would certainly be furious at the Los Angeles Times. We know that she's punished news agencies who cover stories that she doesn't like. I don't believe she's been back on Fox 11 since she was asked about her credentials over there. She certainly has never appeared on this radio station, as far as I know. She once called on Jim Roop, our reporter. When he asked a question she didn't like, he never got called on again. And she just appears in front of friendly media outlets, and that's it. And if it weren't for the press conferences, she would never get any pushback at all.
Well, and in the deposition of Barbara Ferrer, her attorney instructed her not to answer on relevance grounds, which is a BS. You don't do that in a deposition. It's not a proper objection. And every time I asked about her credentials or her experience in leading a response to some viral outbreak, I was denied a response. She never answered. So she never talked about her actual credentials, aside from saying that she didn't know what her PhD was in. No one has been able to actually question her on those things. And I'm still, we have a discovery dispute outstanding. I can still bring her back into the deposition room, and I plan to do that if we can't resolve these issues outside of court.
Well, I hope that you do, because the public certainly deserves answers. Julie Hamill, attorney and mother of school-aged children representing Los Angeles parents who are suing the L.A. County Department of Public Health. You can get her online at laparents.org and follow her on Twitter at Hamill_law. Julie Hamill, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you very much.
Throwback Thursday, songs from Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, edition of the John Phillips Show.
That is, of course, from The Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Richard Dawson.
I never knew he and Richard Dawson did a movie together.
Oh, it's fantastic, because he plays the game show host of a game show where people have to compete to survive. It is super 80s, it is super ridiculous, and it is incredibly stupid, so it's super fun to watch.
Well, at least Richard Dawson is showing his acting capabilities playing a game show host.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to send that interview that we just conducted with Julie Hamill to your friends who may not be aware of what's going on at the L.A. County Department of Public Health, that's easy to do.
That's right. Just go to KABC.com, click on podcast, or go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You'll download all the episodes. Search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube. You can subscribe to the playlist there. So many different ways to listen. It's so easy to subscribe, but it's not easy for everybody. Let's check. Barbara Ferrer, do you know how to subscribe to the podcast?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
I remember the day when we found that clip. That was a special day.
You know what? I'm going to dig during the commercial break. Let me see if I can find the origin story, because that's a classic one.
Next slide.
All right. What do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Dierks Bentley at the Acrisure Arena on August 19th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
I think I can say this representing everyone in the audience and the fake doctor when I say, Randy, thank you.
No, thank you.
Throwback Thursday, songs from Arnold Schwarzenegger movies edition of the show.
We're throwing back to Arnold's first movie, Pumping Iron.
Did he win any awards for that?
That's what put him on the scene. He was just a bodybuilder before then. And that launched the career that led him all the way to the governor's office.
I bet you when he was pumping iron on Venice Beach, he never thought he'd end up in Sacramento.
I mean, the man truly is one of the best success stories of all time. It's easy to make fun of him, but that guy went from rags to riches.
That's very true. And now we
No
want
more
him to
complaining.
we want him to keep Adam Schiff out of the Senate. So he still has more to give.
Stop whining.
All right. During the last segment, we played sound from the fake doctor, and we were inquiring about where exactly that sound, not fake sound, real sound from fake doctor, where it came from. Randy, you went digging into the vault and found it.
Luckily, I have archived every stupid thing we've ever done in this show since the beginning of COVID. And so when I searched in my computer for Ferrer Thank You Origin, it turns out I had it ready to go. So I'd like to have everyone go with us right now on a little journey. We're going to travel back to the year 2021 at an LA County Board of Supervisors meeting where you had the likes of Hilda Solis,
quite frankly,
Catherine Barger,
quite frankly,
Janice Hahn,
that's your final warning,
Holly Mitchell,
quite frankly,
but not Lindsay Horvath because she wasn't there yet. We had Sheila.
I have no patience for people that don't wear masks.
And they had every other Tuesday a briefing with Barbara Ferrer, who would do it on the phone because she did not understand how to use Zoom.
I have no idea.
And the phone cut out at one point. While Barbara Ferrer was giving her presentation, she couldn't hear anything on her end. And when there was dead air, the only thing she could think to do was to thank the Board of Supervisors. Would you like to hear that exchange?
Sounds like classic Babs.
Would be another, deadly winter surge. And the way we avoid that is we do have to stay very, very focused on getting unvaccinated people their doses.
Silence.
thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
More silence. She doesn't know what to do. Nobody is talking to her. Nobody is responding to her. So the only thing she can think to do is to thank them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
When you hear it in the proper context, it sounds like she's trying to give us a drop. Like that wasn't real.
Well, and you got to remember, this is how these supervisors meetings would go. Everyone would be suffering through the COVID restrictions, and the Board of Soups would do nothing but thank each other about what a great job they're doing.
I want to thank Chairwoman Supervisor Holly Mitchell for her inspirational leadership in this community.
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you.
Throwback Thursday, music from Arnold Schwarzenegger film's edition of The John Phillips Show.
That Guns N' Roses track was in Terminator 2, and someone wanted to hear it. It's a good one.
That seems like music that would be played underneath the Terminator shooting up a room full of people.
That was when the Terminator was getting chased by the other Terminator on a motorcycle.
And he was shooting up a room full of people.
Well, yes.
Okay.
With little Eddie Furlong.
That would make sense.
Before the drugs.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you are monitoring the mailbag.
That's right. We have Lee who writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. To celebrate Arnold Schwarzenegger Throwback Thursday, he wanted to know if we could play a pivotal Oscar-worthy scene from the film Total Recall between Arnold Schwarzenegger and his co-star Sharon Stone. Would you like to hear it?
Let's hear it.
Sweetheart, we're married.
Consider that a divorce.
I love that movie.
Okay, this music sounds like something that would be played underneath him playing the role of a parent and giving the child the teachable moment.
Close. This is from Arnold Schwarzenegger's most quotable movie of all time, Kindergarten Cop.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
It's the John Phillips Show at 1:54, Talk Radio 790 KABC. Tammy Bruce joins us at the top of the hour. Now, I don't know if we can necessarily qualify this next story as part of the KABC Crime Blotter. Maybe we'll have to start a new category, Randy, where good deeds go wrong.
There was a man who was helping a homeless person, even let him sleep in his car a couple times. When that homeless person was causing a ruckus and the man said, "You got to go," homeless person ran him over.
That's not very nice.
For more, here's Fox 11 and the wonderful Marla Tejas.
He is sharing his story, hoping to save someone else from being hurt because the suspect is still out there. We do want to warn you, this video is tough to watch and hear.
I almost got killed.
Oh, boy.
I almost got killed.
Ken Tashima referring to this moment Saturday. Ring video shows the driver of this gray Nissan Altima allegedly intentionally running down Tashima, his body thrown over the sidewalk hedge and his head slamming the pavement. In fact, you can hear the screeching tires and that impact.
Yikes.
It's almost as if the mentally unstable man that he gave the keys of his car to acted irrationally.
My head's cracked and it's bleeding. If he rolled me over, I'd be dead.
Tashima, 66, spent the night in the ICU for a cracked and bleeding skull. He's home now dealing with headaches and hoping it doesn't get worse.
I'm on medication. I'm okay. And I'm going to go see a neurologist soon, but
I sure hope they gave him the good stuff.
Oh, he deserves it.
The extra codeine.
I'm thinking fine.
Thinking fine, but still trying to process the hard truth that the man who hit him, Tashima, had been helping for 6 months, letting him stay in his car, the Ultima, in this Torrance parking lot where Tashima is the complex president. But recently, business owners complained because the homeless man...
He was like pooping on the ground and making trouble.
Okay, if I had a space in that development and the president of the development is providing a car so a homeless person can live there and terrorize all of us, I'm not going to be very happy with the president.
And he was like pooping on the ground and making trouble.
That led to Tashima, seen here on that Ring video, telling the man he could no longer park in the lot. You can see the man try to pick a fight.
I told him, I said, look, I don't want to fight with you. I'm a martial artist.
You shouldn't have told him that. You should have just let him find out on his own.
If I fight with you, I'm going to hurt you.
Instead of his fist, unfortunately, the man used his car, and now Tashima wants others, like Torrance PD, to be on the lookout.
If he did this to someone else, I'm just afraid he's going to kill them, and I feel so bad about it if that happened.
Marla Tejas, Fox 11 News.
Well, it shouldn't be very hard to find him. He's the bum in a Nissan in Torrance that's driving around in a car with an indentation of the Karate Kid in the front.
Talk about ungrateful. Guy lets you park in his parking lot for weeks on end, up to 6 months. You're causing trouble. You're pooping everywhere. Guy says you got to go, and you run him over. That is just rude.
Well, I'm telling you, the point of failure was giving him the keys to the car in the first place. You upset all of your neighbors, everyone in that particular development, and then you literally gave him the keys to run you over.
It was an Altima, right?
I think so.
Okay, good. I'm going to use that for later.
I thought Nissan Altimas were all rental cars. Have you ever seen someone buy a Nissan Altima?
Not in a long time.
I always get them at Hertz. OJ recommends.